Great song. Tears for Fears, sowing the seeds of love. 9 minutes past 11. This is BBC Radio Wales. This texter says, I am not thick and I believe in God. Well, God created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh, he took a break. He also made the first human beings out of clay, named them Adam and Eve, and plonked them in the middle of the Garden of Eden. If you believe all that, then you're a bit thick. That's according to a study conducted by American psychologist Miron Zuckerman. He's examined the findings of 63 earlier studies, one dating back to the 1920s, that measured intelligence and religion. He's discovered that the majority of those studies found that more intelligent people were more likely to lack religious beliefs. Can you believe it? Let's talk to the Reverend Andrew Morton. Andrew, hello, good morning to you.
Good morning, Guy.
And Professor Richard Dawkins joins us, author of The God Delusion. Richard, hello, good morning to you, sir. Andrew, first of all, what do you make of the study by Zuckerman?
It's interesting. It's a meta-study, so it's academically rigorous. I would take issue with it in the sense that, purely from anecdotal evidence, I know a number of extremely intelligent people, well-read, intellectual, who actually have quite a strong faith in God. So I'm not quite sure that with so many of these surveys, it depends what kind of question you ask in order to ascertain the answer that you're looking for. I'm not going into the methodology argument. It's an easy, rather facile one to make. But you have to treat them with a certain degree of caution, I think.
You're a religious man. You're also an intelligent man.
Yes, that is true. And I would say that there are an awful lot of people who are intelligent who also have a religious belief. Depends what kind of religious belief. And I don't disagree.
What do you mean? But depends on what kind of religious belief. I don't understand. What do you mean?
What I mean is that if religion does not require this sort of slavish, mindless agreement to everything that the Bible or someone says. True religious inquiry is just that. It is an inquiry. It's an intellectual as well as a philosophical inquiry into the nature of truth. Now, we can discuss the nature of truth forever, but it is just as rigorous in terms of its academic discipline as any other subject.
Richard Dawkins, good morning to you. What do you make of this study?
Well, I agree that it is interesting. I don't think we really want to take anecdotes on board. The whole point about doing statistical studies is to get away from anecdotes. Of course, we all know religious people who are intelligent. That's not the point. The point of doing a statistical study is to look at a lot of data and see whether there's any general tendency for religious people to be either less intelligent or more intelligent. Now, the problem with any one study that anyone does is that it measures intelligence in a particular way, it's done in a particular way on a particular sample of people and so on. The thing about a meta-analysis is that it looks at all the studies that have been done, some good, some bad, and tries to find statistically some generalization looking at all the studies. And Zuckerman, Zilberman and Hall looked at, I think, 63 different studies and found some good, some bad, found a few showing a positive correlation between religiosity and intelligence, and the great majority showing a negative correlation. That's to say, the higher the intelligence, the less likely you are to be religious. I think that a meta-analysis of this kind is the right way to go. You can still pick holes in individual studies, but a meta-analysis tends to get rid of that problem.
Andrew Morton, do you think that we're obsessed with the notion of proof?
That's a big question. I think the human mind requires evidence, requires proof in order to understand the world. Religious belief is not subject to the proof in the same way that scientific inquiry is subject to proof. It is still in search of truth, however, but I would maintain that that what it's searching for is something other than purely empirical truth. I mean, there are a whole set of things which you might regard as true, which would not necessarily be directly provable by scientific analysis. However, I don't disagree with the quality of the evidence that's been put forward in terms of the meta-analysis, etc. My only question would be, depends what kind of religious belief you're actually looking at. If you're looking at as Richard Dawkins says, religiosity, that is to say, the blind following, the unquestioning following of religious diktat, then I wouldn't disagree with the analysis. What I'm saying is that theology, religious belief, is actually not just that.
This is from Hayley in Llandrindod, Wales. Lots of texts, as you would imagine, coming in on this story today. Hayley says, "Hi, Jason. No, you're not stupid for believing in God. I'm studying for a master's in education. That's beside the point. But I believe, fill in the Rhonda. People should not knock it until they've tried it. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me." Richard Dawkins, just respond to this. This is just coming from Ryan in Tiverton on the text. He says, "You should never, ever dismiss the possibility of anything. It is extremely arrogant to do so."
Well, that's of course absolutely right. But as for these people phoning in and saying, I believe, or I know an intelligent person who believes, the whole point of doing a statistical study is to get away from anecdotes like that and to look at the statistics as a whole. That's what this is all about. So I don't want to actually argue about whether it's true that God exists or something like that. I'm simply interested on this program in the meta-analysis which shows a statistical tendency. Now, I would agree with Andrew Morton that it depends what kind of religion you're talking about. And I think, Jason, if I may call you that, you were rather unfair in your introduction because you suggested that being religious implied believing in Adam and Eve and that kind of thing. Well, you've actually got to be very ignorant or stupid to believe in Adam and Eve. But not all religious people do. And in fact, of course, sophisticated theologians don't. So I think that was a rather unfair introduction, albeit unfair, as you might say, on my side.
Right, we're going to get some callers on the lines. Let's go to Billy, who's in Blaena. Good morning to you, Billy.
Good morning, Jason.
Nice to have you on the show. And let's say good morning to Maureen in Treorchy. Good morning to you, Maureen.
Hello, good morning, Jason.
Right, I'll come to you, Maureen, in just a second. Right. But Billy, you're up first. What do you say?
Well, I say it took centuries for clever men to invent a religion where the God couldn't be disproved. That's one thing I say. And the religions were invented to have power over the people and take the money from them. And if you look at the bad things that happened in the last 2,000 years, the churches have murdered, they've robbed, they've tortured, they've sexually and physically abused. If a God existed, you'd think he would allow that sort of thing.
Okay, this is a text from Merthyr, Wayne in Merthyr, rather. Morning, Jace. Of course you have to be stupid or a child to believe in God or any religious nonsense. As intelligent adults, do we believe in the Tooth Fairy? I think not. God comes under the same banner, all fairy tales for kids or people who do not have a strong grip on reality. Maureen, are you a believer?
Absolutely.
What do you
totally.
say? What do you say to that, to Wayne?
But I want.
Wayne says you have to be stupid.
Yes, I know, and I will ignore that because there are millions of people around the world that think that, but there are millions of good Christians. And what saddens me is, and I agree with your gentleman. I didn't get his name when he's talking about not people like myself or anybody else calling in to say yes firmly or no, it's stupid. They've done a study. I don't know anything about the study, why it was done or how it was done to come to this conclusion. What I can personally say is that I, at one time, didn't believe in God. I was brought up, even though I went to chapel every Sunday and twice a week down here in Treherbert, I thought it was farcical. I also know that the reproduction organs of one man and one woman didn't give us billions of people around this world. But something happened to me, and I don't mean physically, but emotionally, after I lost my twin sister. When she died of a hideous cancer, she was a Christian and she'd been saved many, many years ago. And she wanted this for me, and I said to her, I can't do this, Doreen. If I believe in your God, and you have this powerful, wonderful peace inside of you, I don't have this. And I know you're going to die, but I cannot give you this gift. If you want me to believe that this is an all-consuming love and a belief that you have, I can't feel this. And she was sad, and I buried her, and I went on my life. And then one day, something happened that I can't say that the finger of God jumped out and picked me, but I woke up, and I found that there was something missing in my life. And when I say missing, I don't mean big houses, lots of cars, expensive trips around the world. I had it all, Jason. But there was something missing in my life. And I decided to go to church in America. And the pastor that day was speaking about people just like me. What was it that you hadn't found? What thing is vacant in your life? And believe you me, I had it all, Jason. Had it all. $1 million homes. And I went up and I spoke to the minister. And that was 15 years ago. I have never found so much peace in spite of all the mayhem that has gone on in my life. I have never found so much contentment with everything that is surrounding me. And I feel so sad for anyone who can put me and put a label on me of being stupid. I have an only daughter. She's 48 years old. She's an atheist. I don't call her stupid. She doesn't call me names. Between us both, we are trying to give a 12-year-old, my granddaughter, who now asks questions of Nanny. Nanny, this Bible can't be all true, because how did two people, and she knows about the incest, how did two people make this world? Now, when I sit down and talk to her about the 7 days, what I say is this: is it possible, Ashley Megan, that whoever wrote this book, because it's only a book, it really is, it's no different. I said, but it's more powerful than some of the stories we get in the library. But could it be that over the years that the person who wrote the book or came up with the story really meant that it was 7 billion years in that the earth was formed? Now that we know, we have scientific proof, we can send a little robot to Mars.
Maureen, I'm going to stop you there simply because I want to get Richard Dawkins to respond to what is a very moving story. And Richard, listening to Maureen there, it is obvious, isn't it, that religion brings an awful lot of comfort to many, many people around the world. What do you say to Maureen, Richard?
Anecdotes like that are precisely why we need a proper statistical study, which is what we're supposed to be talking about. That's all I have to say. It is an anecdote.
Maureen, it's an anecdote.
I can't get my head around that, Richard, because, the world is full of anecdotes. But I'm talking about me as a person, me as flesh and blood running through my body, and an intelligent person. I believe that we all have our rights. I envy the Muslim race of people today. I really do. For the simple reason that if you're a Muslim, you believe in your religion. I'm not talking about the radicals. Please don't let's get 9 million telephone calls to say that Maureen wants to go marching with the radicals. No, but they are fundamentally all together. They don't have this division. Who decides that a scientific approach could be made to this religion?
Maureen, I'm going to cut across you again because Billy wants to come in. Billy?
Yeah.
I think...
Sorry, hold on one second. Andrew, hold on a second. You can come in just a second.
Right,
but Billy's been waiting patiently on the line. Billy?
Yeah, I believe that most people who believe in God have been brainwashed into believing.
What, including Maureen?
I think she's brainwashed herself.
Maureen, talk to Billy.
Hi, Billy. If you were to meet me, you'll see that I'm certainly not some crazed...
How old are you, Maureen?
But I'm not brainwashed, Billy.
He's just asked you a question, Maureen. He's just asked you a question.
What? Am I brainwashed?
No, he's asked you a question. Hang on.
You were.
Excuse me, Billy, I didn't hear that.
How old are you, Maureen?
66.
66.
Uh-huh.
You're getting close to death. And I think that you might be frightened of what's beyond.
I have
mean,
no fear. Billy, I have no fear of death.
On people's fear of death.
No, as a matter of fact, I take a very sort of, maybe it's a very sterile situation. I believe scientifically that regardless of whether you believe or you don't, once you're born, you have to die. Now, what age you die or how you die or from what you die is irrelevant.
We all got to die, but what happens after death?
I believe that for whatever I'm doing right here in this earthly body of mine, being as kind and as generous as I can be, taking sometimes turning the other cheek, trying to make allowances for people and not blaming religion. I believe that maybe my soul, whatever it is, and I'm not talking about being up there with a pair of white wings, but I do believe that there is a place that this soul goes to, our being goes to. I really, truly believe that.
Okay. Andrew Morton, come in.
Yeah, what I wanted to say was, I think I'd like to get away from this word anecdote and use the word evidence. And I know Richard Dawkins will probably get his hackles up with that. But what I'm talking about is types of evidence. Now, it may not be endlessly replicable. It may not be provable in a forensic scientific sense. But he will know as well as I do that certain types of evidence, that is to say, with regard to human behavior or human motivation, it is this kind of testimony, first-hand, primary source testimony, which actually is useful, valuable for understanding what the nature of religious belief, what the nature of religious truth actually is. I don't think that you can write off the kind of eloquent testimony that Maureen has just given, just as it being something which is not provable, therefore doesn't exist within the academy. Well, maybe it doesn't exist within the academy, but it still has to be understood. It still has to be appreciated. It still has to be analysed for the kind of testimony that it actually is. And that's why I would say you write it off at your peril.
Richard Dawkins, respond to that because you described it as an anecdote.
We have listened for about 10 minutes to one woman's testimony of something that happened to her and to what she believes she is one individual. What is interesting is something that you can gather from looking at lots of individuals, and the question we've been asked today is there any evidence that high intelligence or low intelligence is correlated with being religious? That's what we're supposed to be discussing. We are not discussing the personal experiences of one woman.
It's a good point.
That's exactly what we're getting away from. That's what statistics are for.
It's a good point, Andrew.
Yeah, statistics is the sum total of individual either yes, it's not binary. Actually, it's not either yes or no, because within the sort of social survey context, you get a whole variety of different things because it's human reactions and human motivations. But statistics is the sum total of a whole series of ones and twos, so that you. Yes, it's very. Yes,
that's absolutely right. So
I don't disagree with Richard Dawkins saying yes. Let's look at the big picture. Let's look at the meta-analysis because that tells us what is actually going on. What I'm saying is, that may well be the case, but what is going on at a much lower level, and you can't just simply have this binary argument, yes, they're stupid, no, they're not, without actually being very much more subtle about analysing what religious belief and religious purpose and religious motivation is actually all about.
Lots of text coming in. Richard Dawkins, just respond to this and you can come back in. He says, this texter, religious people are walking, talking zombies, going to a church, going to a mosque, saying and repeating the same words every day of their lives. These people are brainwashed. It's simple. Is it as simple as that, Richard Dawkins?
Well, no. I mean, that again is one person's view. It's a view that I might agree with, but it still is only one person's view. We don't really have to care about what one person thinks, whether it's on my side or Andrew's side of this argument. What we're looking at is the statistics of the study by Zuckerman and his colleagues. And this is the interesting topic. I fully agree with Andrew that you have to be subtle and sophisticated. You have to be subtle and sophisticated about how you do the statistics, how you measure intelligence. Different studies have measured intelligence in different ways. It may be that we're not looking at intelligence at all. Maybe we're looking at ignorance, which is correlated with intelligence. So it may be that ignorant people are more likely to be religious. Whatever it is, there is a negative correlation, according to this meta-analysis, which seems to be well analyzed, a negative correlation between religiosity and various measures of intelligence.
Thank you very much indeed to Andrew Morton and Richard Dawkins. And as I say goodbye to Richard Dawkins, Beth in London texts, "This is ridiculous. You have Richard Dawkins there at your disposal to discuss this fascinating study. You're letting a mad religious woman dominate the show with the story of her life. To the people who write, take a break, produce this show." Do the people who write Take a Break produce this show? Take a Break, that's like a lifestyle magazine, isn't it? "Let Dawkins talk more. Give us more information on this study, please," says Beth in London. Thank you, Beth. James says, "Hi, Jace. I'm a Christian with a deep interest in science and history. And to me, the problem is that Christians treat the Bible as a science textbook when it clearly wasn't meant to be. And Slugger in Merthyr, very hard to be objective about religion. Best say, each to their own, in my experience. Do you have to be stupid to believe in God? Lots of tweets coming in. Reese says no, but it does help. And Glenn says that's a stupid question." Time for Nick Jones.